Please welcome Cedars to come and share about their school here in Scotland. Just hold it up here.
Good afternoon. Nice to see everybody. Thank you so much for inviting us along, Neil, and thank you for the rest of you. It's lovely to see so many people that you know are on the same page as you. I think Christian education can sometimes feel quite isolating, and it's just lovely to be in a room with so many people with the same heart, to see a generation won for Christ and live for Christ. So I've got a few of our team with us today. I've got Andy here, who's going to come in a moment. He teaches mathematics. I've got Leah, who teaches biology. I've got Sarah, who is our school administrator. If you know anything about education, she actually runs the school. I can be off, I'm the head teacher. Leah could be off, Andy could be off, and the school will run. But if Sarah is off, it takes a day, and nobody knows where anything or anyone is. Sarah also home educated her own two sons from the age of 5 to 18. So she's our kind of expert on Christian education, all the kind of broad brushstrokes. Of that, it's lovely to just be with you all together today. And I am a history teacher, so I tend to think in terms of great big spans of time. And I was just sitting there listening to all of you guys that have already spoken, and now more of you to come, and being in the room with you today. It's like all of light from across Scotland all being in the room together, and it's like living coals, isn't it, coming together, and you feel the inspiration of that and just the encouragement that there are other people out there that really feel the same as you do. But if I look back, quick history lesson for you, does anybody know when the first homeschools were set up, Christian homeschools were set up? Now, Neil, you're not allowed to say because I told you this at our Christmas play. 70 AD. Are actually part of a global mission. Did you know that? In 70 AD, when Christians were expelled from Jerusalem by the Emperor Tiberius, and a lot of the Christian converts were actually scholars. And so they spread all across the Roman Empire, and they set up their own home educating bases, home schools. But then other people in the local area, Christians and non-Christians, sent their schools to their homes as well to be educated. And that's when it all began. So we're actually not in isolation today, but we're not in isolation in terms of the global story of Christianity. We are just carrying on and holding the torch for the bit of time that we have got here before we get to go to glory as well. So we're part of a tradition that spans 2,000 years. Many of you will know Melville Knox crew, reformers, 16th, 17th and 18th century. They carried the torch in Scotland in particular, but all across the UK. I learned recently that in the 19th century alone, in the 1800s, in a span of 50 years, there were 12,000 Christian schools established in the UK. So we are not isolated, we are not alone, and we are not unusual. Well, some of you, no, I'm joking. I am joking, that's me. We are part of something that really matters, and see if I can, you're always nervous using somebody else's clicker, so let's see what happens here. There you go. Ta-da! This was supposed to be on when I was giving you my history lesson because somebody's about to light that candle. It's a bit glitchy on my screen, but better on yours. We carry the most important thing in our heart, and it is the light of the gospel. And in 1999, a little church down in Greenock began a school of their own in this building. Interesting to hear quite a lot of you guys talking about using church buildings. This was in a little part of Greenock called Larkfield, which is, if I just tell you, it's quite exciting. And they couldn't really believe that a Christian church was starting a school in a building in their estate. All the buildings around the school were set on fire, but the people kind of took us to their hearts down there, and they looked after us, and we never got torched, which was good. So that was 1999, and the school, I was still in school then, by the way. I did not start the school. I actually remember this. I go to a church, or used to go to a church down in England that's affiliated with the one that started this school, and we all used to save up our pocket money in little coffee jars, and then we'd send it up to support the work of this Christian school. And in 2004, through faith, miracles, had a lot of volunteers giving a lot of time and energy, we purchased this building in the kind of west end of Greenock. People don't set fire to the buildings around us there, which is quite good. And this is where the school still is today. So 2006, I think it was, the school started to go on from S2 through to S6. We currently have 84 pupils. We've got about 30 in the primary school and about 54 in the secondary school. It's a great place to work. We love it. And I'm going to ask Andy to come and tell you a little bit about the most important part of who we are, which is all about Christ and the gospel. And then after that, to hand over to Leah, just to come and talk a little bit about the other thing we do, which is education. Andy, thanks.
Good afternoon. As well as being a teacher at school, my two children have been at the school since primary 1, and they're now in S3 and S5. I have the privilege of teaching them as well. So I believe in it not just as a teacher, but as a parent as well. In our school, the gospel underpins everything that we do, and it's our central aim of our work that every child, Christian and non-Christian, now the majority of the children in the school come from non-Christian backgrounds. We want them all to have a deep and accurate understanding of the Christian faith and the God of the Bible, an understanding that some of them just would never ever have otherwise. We seek to make our Christian teaching both implicit and explicit through regular assemblies. At the moment, we're working through the Apostles' Creed, just unpacking what does that mean? What do Christians actually believe? Teaching them the Lord's Prayer, you know, the stuff that you learned when you were at school a generation ago that now in kids in schools just aren't hearing. We're teaching them these things so that they can have a real understanding of what the Christian faith is. Our Christmas play, which you see up on the screen there. Recently, Neil, we had the privilege of having him along at that, and it was a really joyous occasion. We had kids involved, not just acting and singing, but helping writing the script. And we had families coming in to that play that otherwise wouldn't step foot in a church at any other time, and they wouldn't hear the gospel at any other time. And we were able to share the wonderful good news of Christ coming to earth in that Christmas play. We have other opportunities as well, our Easter service, our end of term prize giving as well, and we're just able to share what Christ has done. And also, you know, it's not just the explicit gospel teaching. Education is God-given. We have a wonderful Lord who's made a wonderful world, and he wants our young folk to discover and learn all about it and to see his glory in all of creation. And that's a big part of what we're trying to do as well, to teach them well. And Leo will come and tell you a wee bit about that in a second. But, you know, the gospel message has to be enacted, not just taught. And every morning we meet as a staff to pray that God would give us the compassion, the wisdom, the ability to just get across something of his love and compassion and his glory. And all we ask is that if you can remember at 10 to 9 when we're gathering to pray, if you're able to remember us in prayer as well, that'd be greatly appreciated. So I'll just pass over to Leah.
Okay, so yes, I'm pleased I can see over this thing. Normally I can't see over a lectern. Like you all, we really see the teaching that we're given to do as a God-given privilege. And our aim in the curriculum is to provide stimulation and challenge for pupils of all different abilities, all different ranges of abilities. So like you've heard, we've got a junior school. There we teach the core curriculum, but because of the class sizes, we're flexibility, like the other schools have been saying, to make use of learning inside and outside the classroom. So we have a lot of trips outside to parks, museums, science centres, leisure facilities. We can do a lot of that. We're also very lucky with a lot of volunteers. We really couldn't run without all the volunteers that we have. A lot of people from our own churches and our community come in and volunteer, especially with the primary, with learning support. Then we have the senior school. So in the first 2 years, S1 and 2, we do broad general education across all the curricular areas. But also in S1 and 2, there's a lot of highlights, like the opportunity to be team leaders on our Lego challenge. We were up in Kilmarnock yesterday with a team doing technological challenges. That was S1s and 2s. And also a program, actually you can see them here. Yeah, this is last year's lot. They have a stepping stones program every Thursday. speakers in from the local community to help start preparing children for life after school. This week, actually, we had people teaching them CPR from St John's Ambulance, so that was a good afternoon. And then S3 to S6, so that's where we offer the standard SQA qualifications. So we're an SQA centre. We offer subjects going from National 2 to up to Advanced Higher, obviously not in every subject. There wouldn't be the possibility financially to offer every subject, but we also offer qualifications in association with Open University through their YAS programmes, and also through a local college 2 afternoons a week who offer a schools programme where we can offer additional subjects like higher psychology, and also things like plumbing, criminology, a whole lot of different things, a couple of afternoons for our senior school, so that's been really successful. And also the senior pupils, because again of the size, we're able to offer them a lot of help and support with their next steps, whether that be college applications, university, knowing what to do with their subject choices for their next steps. We also love to recognise excellence in all our subjects. So we have things like an athlete of the term in senior school, where it's very competitive. They get to go away on trips and away days if they've been the athlete that has been contributed the most to the effort and ethos. But basically, our underlying philosophy is that every child and an adult that comes into our school, but every child especially matters, and that through that approach that we give all the children the ability to sort of find their passion, find their own interest, and to achieve whatever their own potential is, whatever that may be, in whatever area that might be in, that we help them discover that through the curriculum, as well as through all the gospel opportunities that we have.
Thank you. So this was the one thing the board said to me: make sure you share the vision, and I nearly forgot. These guys have touched on it anyway, but this is our vision. It is that we run a Christian school, Christian first, school second, with exceptional teaching. And now that I'm an interim head teacher, I can kind of brag a bit about the teachers. And I must say, we're really fortunate in the school in that we have teachers that are deeply committed Christians, which is fundamental to the vision, deeply committed followers of Christ who have a passion to see young people and children taught that same way, but that are also really good at teaching, and we're always looking to improve. A lot of professional development in the school around about that. So we run a Christian school. This is the vision, that we will have exceptional teaching. In our school, every child matters and can realise their fullest potential. And I'm not allowed to, but I always add another bit to this. There's the board of, you know what it's like, they package this thing and this is what it is. But I always just add this bit because it is my vision as well. It's all to the glory of God. We don't do any of this for ourselves. It's not a career, it's not a job. We love it. You do get paid a bit. But the whole point of this is that we glorify God in everything that we do and everything that we say. And Andy's touched on the gospel. That is at the heart of who we are and all that we do. And I had a lovely conversation in October last year with a former pupil who comes from a Christian family, lovely family. Christian people like ourselves seeking to do their best. And she's in her early 20s. And I asked her, I said, look, reflect back a little bit for me. Did it really matter that you went to a Christian school? At the end of the day, now you've been to university, you've got a job, you're out there in the world. Do you think it made any difference at the end of the day? And she said, yes. She said, here's why, 3 things. And I've memorized. Encouraging and be encouraged, all of you that are involved in Christian education. She said, 3 things. Because I was educated in a Christian school, I know who I am. I know who Jesus is, and I know who I am in Jesus. I know who I am, I know who Jesus is, and I know who I am in Jesus. And that is a tremendous legacy that you and I, together in all the different places we work, a tremendous legacy that we will leave behind us. I had a pupil that I was speaking to in December who's in the senior school, and in the course of the conversation, I discovered that he is, about 8 months ago, decided to become a Christian himself, just as a result of the gospel teaching in the school, and he's found a church local to him and his family, and he goes every Sunday. And that day I just ran into the staff room. I was like, guys, you're never going to believe what, this is absolutely incredible. So we have children that are Christians, children that are not Christians, and the impact on them all of a Christian education cannot be measured. I'll finish with one comment from a girl in P7 who played Mary in our Christmas play this year. And she's not from a Christian home at all, no Christian faith in her background. And I said to her, think about the Christmas story. Who's your favourite character? And I thought she would say, like the wise men or a shepherd or some of the parts that are in the play that she had been involved in. She just looked at me and she said, it's Jesus. And I thought, that's really interesting. Why is that? And she just said, all of the brightness in the story comes from him. All of the brightness in the story. Oh, that just choked me up. And do you know what? I want to leave you with that, because all the brightness in all of the we're telling comes from the person of Jesus, doesn't it? And it's lovely to be able to share with you. Thank you so much.
Amen. Please welcome Classical Conversations.
Hello, I'm Yvonne. Sorry, start again. My name's Yvonne MacArthur, and I'm the current community leader for Classical Conversations here in Glasgow and in Dundee. I began the Glasgow Classical Conversations community back in 2020, and initially it was my son and I sitting in the living room by ourselves working through this curriculum thinking, what on earth am I doing here? But I continued along with it, and eventually the Lord sent other families to us, so that by the time we got to the end of our first year, we had a full foundations class, and we had a couple of students going into what we call our essentials program. Fast forward to this year, we opened up another foundations class in Glasgow, so we now have 2 full foundations classes and an essentials class. One of our families, who was with us for the past 3 years, branched out and started another Classical Conversations community in East Lothian, and her community has got a completely full foundations class. And then we had somebody reach out from Dundee who wanted to start our community up there. Now we have a foundations community up there, and it is believed in August we're going to actually have 5 Classical Conversations communities in Scotland. 2 of them will be in the challenge levels, which are for those who have reached the age of 12 by the 30th of September at the beginning of the academic year. So I've said Classical Conversations a lot, and I'm thinking that a lot of people here probably don't even know what Classical Conversations is. So it's affectionately called CC, but for the purposes of today, I'm going to add an extra C in there. So Classical Conversations, we are, first and foremost, we are Christian. It's a Christian curriculum. We are classical, and by classical we mean that is our methodology. And finally, we're community. CC's mission is, very simply, to know God and to make him known. And that is central to everything we do. Our educational catechesis wheel has God right at the centre of it. And we believe that parents are commanded to bring their children up in the way of the Lord, and they are their children's first and best educators. It's their duty and their responsibility to educate. So CC comes alongside them, and we train parents how they can use the classical tools and give their children a classical Christian education at home. Because it's not just that one day of the week, they need the help and the support and the tools to be able to do it the rest of the time. The classical method comes from the 7 liberal arts, which are subdivided between the trivium and the quadrivium. Classical Conversations focuses on the trivium. We're talking about the grammar, the basics, the building blocks of knowledge. We give children the knowledge in the grammar stage so that when they then move on to, that age they get to when all of a sudden they start asking questions and being kind of challenging back, and you'll say something that's like, but no, why is this? That's when they're starting to reach that dialectic stage. They've got a bit of knowledge, but now they're going to start pushing and they want to know more. They want to be able to have conversations with you. They don't just want to be spoon-fed information. So they go into our dialectic stage, and in CC, that's when we add in what we call our Essentials programme, which gives them that safe environment to ask questions and to wrestle with ideas. Once they reach the age of 12, they would progress into the Challenge programme, which is 6 levels, Challenge A, B, and then 1 through 4, which takes them all the way up to age 18. In the UK, CC graduated its first lot of Challenge 4, so that was the first students in London who have been from age 4 in the Foundations programme, through Foundations, through Essentials, and completed Challenge A, B, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I spoke to one of the mums to say what's her main takeaway from having a child that graduated from Challenge 4. And I wrote it down so that I would get exactly what she said. She told me that as a parent, she was forever indebted to CC for installing the love for knowledge in her son and creating a programme that not only teaches students the core concepts, but also teaches students how to defend their faith and their values. The last part of CC is community, and I've heard a lot of people here, home educating is not easy. It is not a walk in the park. There are days when you just want to crawl into a room and close the door and just not come out. But it is doable, and especially when you have a community of fellow Christian home educators around you. And when they're following the same curriculum as you, you can ask them questions, they can support you, and you can support them. It's amazing how much you gain being in community with people doing the same curriculum. So the thing that Classical Conversations really gives you is it gives you community, it gives you a thorough, rigorous curriculum that will take your child to university if that is the path the Lord sets out for them. It gives you commitment, and it gives you accountability to help you educate your child from toddlerhood right through their high school graduation. And we have lots of fun along the way. If you'd like to know some more, I've got a board at the back, and I've got lots of pictures, because there's so many things that we do in community that I would never have been able to do as a home educator on my own. We built a planetarium, which we then lent out to other CC groups so that kids could actually climb inside and make their constellations. At the end of the last term, we've been studying biology in the human body. We converted one of the rooms into an operating theatre, and all the kids got dressed up in scrubs and cut out all their parts of their anatomy, put them all together, and learned so much being hands-on, and the experience of being surgeons together. It was amazing. In our Essentials classes, they went on a trip to Narnia to face the wolves and stuff. They were diagramming sentences, they were parsing, they were really getting into the nitty-gritty of English, all having fun. And I think that's one of the main things. It's not, a lot of people when they think classical education, they think it's really stifed and you're going to be sitting just doing lists and lists and lists and lists and lists, but it's not. We sing, we dance, we have fun, we play games, and we learn a lot. And thank you. I think that's my 5 minutes up.
Thank you very much. Please welcome Stephen from the Reformed Christian Education Board.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Stephen McCollum. I'm the fellow my colleague John talked about that was the teacher with just the green box, and coming in my first day to teach at the Glasgow School with 3 full-time pupils. But it's great to be here speaking on behalf of the Board of Reformed Christian Education in Scotland, or as we are, Melville Knox, Scotland, as you maybe would see us on social media. What we do is a little bit different than what other people have spoken about today, because we are a board that tries to set up Reformed Christian schools throughout Scotland. Our name is Melville Knox. Where does that come from? Well, I think most people know the Knox part. John Knox, his vision was to have a Christian school in every single parish in Scotland. So where you have a church, there you have a school. That's our vision today, to set up those throughout Scotland. Andrew Melville was a generation after John Knox, but still the first Reformation. He helped improve the academic excellence of tertiary education, the universities, Glasgow, St Andrews. And Andrew Melville was not afraid to stand up to the king, King James VI, or James I, as you might call him. We are not afraid to go against the grain if the government says something. So that's why we have these visions, these names at the heart. We set up Reformed Christian schools. That's one of our objectives, and it's the only one I'm going to focus on today, but come speak to us about our other objectives. These schools are biblical. These schools have Christ at the heart, and every subject is taught from a Christian worldview. And I'm going to take you on a quick sprinting journey from coming to us and asking just a bit of interest, how can we set up a school, all the way to a fully fledged school. So let's run along this journey with me. First of all, if you get in touch with us and you express interest, our first thing we'll say to you is try to get a few people together and pray. Try to get a few people together in your community, from your church, to pray about a Christian school, because it takes the Lord building the house for something to be successful, and it takes a team of people working together. So that's the first thing. So at this stage in our process, we've got some people in West Lothian, we've got some people in Lanarkshire that are interested in setting up Christian schools. Very early days. If you're in Lanarkshire, we're having a public meeting on Saturday, the 24th of February, 2 p.m. in Wishaw, Ebenezer. So join us there to hear about our plans for there. But do get in touch with us, because we can connect you with people we know who want to set up Melville Knox schools. Sprinting on to the second step of the journey, that's when a steering committee or a board is set up in an area and things are beginning to move. Let's get our policies in order. The nice thing about doing it with Melville Knox is that we're not reinventing the wheel. Each new place is going to use the same constitution. It's going to have all the policies in place, and we can get moving quite quickly. And at this stage, we've got a board that is for Dundee and Fife. It's one board, but the idea is to set up two schools. So we've had a public meeting in Dundee. We've had a public meeting in St Andrews. They're at the stage of looking for premises, thinking through some things. So again, early-ish days, but there's a progress in the fact that there's a board working there. Sprinting on to the third stage of our journey, this is where things go really quickly, because it's where that board is realizing we're gearing up for an August start. And there's that time frame. We need to be ready for August, because parents need to know where they're going to send their kids. And in this stage, we've got our Highlands group that are working. We had a very successful public meeting there in Inverness. We have lots of people that expressed interest. There's a board set up. They've hired a teacher. They're advertising for a second part-time teacher, aiming for an August start this year. And they have a conference on the 16th of March for prospective parents. So everything's moving very quickly there. Ultimately, the Highlands, if you've ever lived in the Highlands, huge area. This is going to have to be a multi-campus school. So that's what we're praying for. And then sprinting on to the final stage of the journey, that's where you get a fully fledged Melville Knox school at the end of it. And we've got, in this stage, Aberdeen, which has finished sort of its first year, 13 pupils. They just had their first inspection, which all teachers know is a very daunting process. They got a good report. That's public information. You can go and search for it. You can read that report and see that they have achieved excellence, which is what we want to see. And then our other school, as my colleague John spoke about, is our Glasgow school. 65 pupils across two campuses, one in the east, one in the west. We have around 16 applications for primary one for next year, so it's going to be a big, daunting intake. We also started secondary there, and next year moving up from S1 to S3 is the plan. So all in all, across Scotland, if things go well, the Lord blesses, next year there should be about over 100 Melville Knox pupils in Scotland across these different schools. All I say, and I say this every time I think I stand at public meetings, thus far the Lord has helped us. But the thing about that, thus far, it's not just looking backwards, it's looking forwards. If God has helped us thus far, God will help us in the future. So thank you.
And please do speak to all the guys and ladies who have been here at the break. Next up, please welcome Providence Christian Independent School.
Fesgar ma chulutinye shin wawasachtalich vishow. And in case you think I'm going to continue in Gaelic, I am not. And you'll be mightily relieved, I'm sure. So, my name is Joe McPhee. I'm Chair of Board of Governors of what is now Providence Christian School. A bit of background of Providence. Established in 1999 under the auspices of Lewis Christian Education Association. The association's purpose is to establish Christian schools and also to promote Christian education. And we've tried to do that through having various public meetings during the year, usually associated with our AGM, and inviting a speaker to come and address parents and the wider sort of Christian community in the islands, in particular the Isle of Lewis and Harris. The non-denominational, when we started the school, I think that every denomination in Lewis was represented, and there are many, as there are across all our towns and cities and even islands. We changed the name to Providence Christian School a few years ago. Very small school. At one time we reached, I think, 23 or 24 perhaps. Currently only 8. But it's a wonderful school and a wonderful environment. 3 teachers, 1 full-time head teacher, 2 part-time teachers, and as been stated, teachers get paid a sort of sacrificial salary. That for parents, I know, having put my own children through the school, 5 sons, it's difficult when you're a parent and you're on the board and you're giving what you can to live with the fact that you're not paying your teachers everything that they are due and that you would like to do. But remarkably, God has been faithful to us in all of that throughout the years. There's a strong desire for secondary education. It still remains, and something that we've not managed to do. But, you know, as I look back, this is our 25th year, so it's 25 years of the Lord's faithfulness to us, and it is so encouraging to be here and to hear about Mannafields who have been so helpful to us and were and continue to be. 35 years, Regis, not dissimilar, Cedars, I think 25 years. God's faithfulness is to be seen, I think, across this Christian education community. That's just a screen, some pictures from the school where the kids get involved with. The picture on the top right is that the Iron Age house at Bosta in Uig in the Isle of Lewis. If any of you have ever been, please do come. And Mark Musty is our head teacher. The founding principles are shared, I'm sure, with others. Christianity and biblical truth, central to the whole curriculum. The atmosphere of the school is critical to us, where God is honored, where the Word of God rules. And I had the privilege of being in the school on Wednesday in my role on Board of Governors, doing a sort of governor's visit. And it was just a joy and a delight to see that atmosphere and that environment. The quotation there is from one of the pupils who wrote a piece about being in the school. And I just picked that piece out because what he said was, his abiding memory was that God was real. God was real in that classroom every single day. And of course, we try to ensure that the school and the home work together. That's a critical part of what's done. The school and the home is a partnership under God. And we're very committed to parental involvement in getting the parents involved in the life of the school, even coming in to support some of the teaching aspects and whatever aspect of assistance is required. What are the challenges for us? Maintaining our vision and mission and commitment, financial sustainability, very small numbers. Without the funding of Friends of Christian Education Scotland, life would be extremely difficult. It's quite remarkable. It's been commented on already, I think by Steve about, and I know Steve at the prayer meeting last week, we prayed about this, and he prayed specifically about it, and it really resonated. We must pray that the Lord would raise up entrepreneurs, whoever they may be, to come and be part of this movement. And there is a movement. There is a movement. There continues to be apathy amongst Christians. It kind of beggars belief at times, despite the rejection of God in the national education system, despite the moral chaos, despite the terrible things that we heard about. It's just remarkable that parents just seems to pass over them. And of course, parental authority being undermined in every possible way. So these are some of our challenges. We would love to have a new building. We're looking for another part-time teacher, as one of our teachers is going off on maternity leave. But there is always hope. There is renewed interest. There's potential parents. And I'm finishing with this, just hope. This renewed interest that I've heard about, and it's just fantastic to be here to hear everything that's going on. And we do need to work together. We must work at working together. Unite for Education, Melville Knox, Christian Schools Trust, Christian Concern, churches. The home educating pieces that we've heard today have been just so stirring. I used this quote in a piece I wrote recently. It's from Steve Bagoo, Director of Education at Christian Concern. Education is always for the glorification of a kingdom. The question is, which kingdom is the school glorifying? That's a beautiful quote. And I think this was a huge encouragement to me when we started the school. Launch out into the deep. And as I was preparing this was very much on my mind, that I think the time is right to truly launch out into the deep and let your nets down for a catch, as our Saviour himself said. So I think that's all. I'm sure I didn't put any more slides on. So thank you.
Thank you. Amen. Well, lastly, but not least, before we go into our break, please join me in welcoming the leader of the Scottish Family Party, Richard Lucas.
Right, thank you. It's great to hear from everyone there. I'll say to all the people who have spoken so far, I feel that you're pioneers. Now, you may react to that thinking, we've been doing this for 20 years. What are you on about? We're pioneers. I think in the grand scheme of things, over a century, I think you're pioneers, because I think the Christian education movement is entering a new phase. I think that's quite clear. I think you here are pioneers in that. Now, what I've got to say today is I think we live in the shadow of a volcano. And this volcano rumbles every now and again. The smoke comes out of the top. You feel a bit of an earth tremor. And sometimes the volcano erupts and a flow of lava comes down one side, destroys all in its path, and causes terrible destruction. Now, what is the volcano? The volcano is the Scottish government. The Scottish government. Because it's got a set of values that are in tension with Christian teaching, with Christian values in virtually every way possible. And anyone involved in Christian influence in education, we don't live in fear, but we have a concern. We're a little bit worried about what's going to come from this volcano next. If you're involved in home education, well, I don't think the Scottish Government's really too keen on home education. I think they think children have got a right to education, by which they mean children have got a right to be indoctrinated into our values. So there's a concern there. If you look at the countries the Scottish Government admire, a lot of them have banned home education. What about Christian schools? I think Christian schools seem to be having a pretty, I wouldn't say an easy time, but in terms of the government, there don't seem to be any major problems. But who knows what could be around the corner? Who knows until they come along and say, we're not happy with your inclusion policies. You think you're a bit weak in the equality area. We'd like to see you introduce this policy. Or there's been a complaint from someone about the ethos of your school. Well, I mean, it could happen anytime. It could happen anytime. Those of you involved in state education, either visiting state schools or working in them, I mean, who knows when the tide can turn on that. Lots of people have done, we've heard about some of it already today, fantastic work in state schools, but then suddenly it's all over. It gets stopped. Similarly, Christian teachers, how long before it's you have to teach this? How long until it's you have to sign this policy in order to work here? So we don't know what's around the corner in that way. So we live in the shadow of this volcano. Now, perhaps someone with grossly optimistic might say, well, the government changes one day. Maybe the next government, it'll be different. Well, it won't be. It won't be. That's certainly with this foreseeable future, that's not going to happen. So what can we do? What can we do about it? We can try to influence the government. Maybe when the inspectors come, you'll sit down with a cup of tea with them and have a nice chat, and maybe you'll try and keep them on side. Great, fantastic. Maybe we can campaign when the government says, we're thinking about doing this, what do you think? You can give them your views, put forward your arguments, make your case. That's really fantastic as well. But I wrote a book about Christians in politics a couple of years ago. And one of the chapters is entitled, Newsflash, We Live in a Democracy. Because I feel that quite often for Christians, this is an element that sort of doesn't enter their thinking. They're very concerned about what the government's doing, very concerned, it's very problematic. But then when it comes to election day or the political process, they like take a day off from all that, vote for one of the parties in any case, and then carry on being very concerned about what the government's doing. Now, we've heard people that were involved in education in lots of different ways today, and as the Scottish Family Party, we're a political party. So our part of the campaign, if you like, our part of the mission, is to engage with the political process and try and bring this influence into the Parliament, ultimately, in order to challenge the government when things are going in the wrong way and to make positive proposals as well. I mean, my dream politically is that we had a government that we don't see as a volcano, we see it as a fountain. So it's going to encourage us in Christian education. It's going to resource us. Start a Christian school, and the government comes along and says, that's fantastic, here's your funding. This is how much funding you get per pupil. Imagine that. You're home educating. That's absolutely fantastic. We don't want to come along and scrutinize your curriculum and make sure you're teaching what we want you to teach. But is there any way we can help? How about a bit of funding? How about some resources? We want to make it easy for you to home educate. Now, if you look in the Bible and look through church history, there have been lots of times when God's people have lived in the shadow of a volcano and they've flourished. They really have made the most of the opportunities, and there's been great work done. And so I think that's what's happening at the moment. But ultimately, why do we do this? Some people from the outside, if they heard about a Christian education conference, they'll think it's just those Christians, they just want to get their own way. They're just sort of being a bit tribal. But that's not it at all. Why do we do this? Because we want the best for young people. The best for young people involves the Christian gospel, and the best for young people involves good education. The best for young people does not include teaching them things that are not true, and basically leading them down paths that could blight the rest of their lives. So we've all got a part to play in that. I mean, the title of today's event, obviously, Unite for Education. That's what we're doing here. And I think it's really important that we do that. Each of us are involved in different aspects of this issue. So let's really support each other as we enter what I think is a very exciting phase for Christian education in Scotland. All right, thank you very much.